Greetings everybody, Rob here from Stage Tower Games, and I'm back with episode 6 of our Running an Adventure Path series, and this one is called Burnout. Now, what I'm going to say is, first let's talk about what Burnout is and what I mean by that. What I mean is that feeling that might come to either players or DMs when they just are tired. They just lose some of that passion, some of that drive to play the game, and they slowly start to fade and possibly quit. Obviously, this is a lot worse for a DM to burn out, because if a DM just leaves, the game is completely over, as opposed to if a player leaves, the game can kind of still progress, but obviously, in a dream situation, we don't want that to happen to anybody. Now, as we discussed in some of the previous episodes, their campaigns are long. Campaigns last quite a while, and it's a long commitment for people to do. So if people aren't going to be able to make it, that's one thing. But the same thing week in and week out, it's going to wear down some people. And when it happens, it's unfortunate. So, let's start with how you can identify ways of possible burnout. The first one, if you see a player who may start to lose interest in the game, maybe they get distracted, they're on their phone, maybe they don't seem to be as invested in all the different scenes, and not just like some people are like that in general. But if there's a player who was interested and they slowly start to kind of, they care less, maybe they start showing up late to sessions, maybe they start skipping sessions, missing them for excuses that almost sound somewhat made up, but like obviously you can't tell, but they start missing more and more sessions, and they show up late to the ones that they do show up to, or maybe they leave early kind of deal. Those kind of signs of them not being invested is definitely a way to kind of call out, it's possible burnout situation happening right here. So how do you deal with that? Well, the first thing that you do is you can always just talk to the person, talk with them, talk with the group, gauge everyone's feelings, see how everyone is doing, how everyone is feeling for that current mood, and get their honest feedback. Maybe they're tired, maybe they want a week off, maybe they want a little time off so they can maybe do other things. Now that's also a risky thing, because if you take time off, it sets up time for people to just fully kind of tune out and not get back into it. That's also a dangerous risk to take. Another one that I kind of like to try and employ more is breaking it up, the monotony. Maybe, like, for instance, the Paizo Pathfinder adventure paths kind of run in 6 books, like 6 story arcs kind of. So like in between story arcs, do a one-shot, play a different system, don't even play D&D, play like a board game, play a video game together, whatever. Something different that kind of breaks up that monotony, but still keeps the group dynamic together, so people can be, okay, this was fun, it was a nice break, something refreshing that's not the same old. That is a way, in my opinion, that you can handle and deal with burnout. Now, what happens if burnout actually, if you can't, even with all that, players leave? They just say, you know what, I can't anymore. Well, first, be hopeful that your players actually tell you. Sometimes players will just ghost you and leave, especially if it's like a virtual game online. They may just, stop showing up. They may, ban you on Discord, don't even see you anymore. That's an issue. But if a player does leave, I think, and this is a very hard moment even for myself when I kind of started DMing more and more, was don't automatically think it's your fault. I mean, you may, obviously, depending on how you run the session, but you kind of, I think as a DM, especially as a newer DM, your first thought automatically skips to, did I do something? Did I not DM good enough? Or was I not fun enough? Was the game not entertaining enough? Was it not engaging enough? What, you start to question and you start to doubt yourself and start to go through this list of, what could I have done better so they didn't leave? And you have to kind of get around that mindset and don't think like that. Not everyone is Matt Mercer. Not everyone is, these big Chris Holmes and all these people. Like, they don't need Mark Holmes, sorry. I fused Chris Perkins and Mark Holmes together. Not every one of these big DMs that have these massive stories. It's okay. Your style probably works, and you gotta think. If say you have a party of 4 and a party of 5, one person leaves, well then maybe the other 4 might still be having a good time. So then it can't all be you. It's just that person, and that's really probably outside of the idea that you should check with your players to make sure that they don't feel burnt out, and either schedule breaks or schedule intermission games. I mean, think about, some of these tabletop shows online, they do seasons and then they stop for like a month or 2. Obviously, it's kind of like build up hype and get like the new animations, the new graphics ready. But it's also a good break for those players. Think of TV shows. TV shows don't just run continuously. Yeah, they gotta film it, but like having that like break in between seasons gives the actors even a chance to rest and recuperate. Not have to be in that mindset of that character every week. So, there's all ways to do it. But to bring it back to the other talking point to take out from this is don't automatically blame it on yourself. Don't put it on you. Don't make it think that it was your fault why they left. You shouldn't. You probably are doing a good job. You have players. You've probably made it a decent while. Like, if you made it a good enough way into the campaign, halfway through, 3/4 through, and then they burn out, that's not, if it was you, it would have happened much sooner. It would have been a much like, your style doesn't gel with my style. But at this point, it's a sign that it's definitely more to do with how they feel and how they might not be as engaged with the game anymore. And it happens. Like we said, campaigns last a year, 2 years. It's gonna happen. So, also as well, and I'll just end with this little caveat for those of you who play Pathfinder, play Starfinder, but mostly Pathfinder does quite a bit. I feel like that. So the way they write adventure paths usually is there's a different author for each book. They kind of writes them and then they kind of like piece them together in a way. And you'll notice around book 4, book 5 is what I like to call the side quest filler book. These are the books that kind of don't really make much sense at first glance. Like, story-wise, they connect, but it's just so out of like random elements to the game. For example, my example for this is in Rise of the Rune Lords, books 1, 2, and 3. You're kind of dealing with all these threats, and then then you eventually start going into giants around book 4. Book 5 is entirely spent on this one dungeon, just to get the special weapons. Curse of the Crimson Throne is the other one. You spend 3 books in the city of Carosa, and then you spend book 4 in the desert with the Shawanti tribes, kind of like doing this like faction quest to try and gain and influence points to try and do a ritual. It's just so you can get the information to get you to book 5. It's just like, it feels out of place a little bit. And those kind of shifts in the game can definitely affect people as well and throw people out of their game mode. But again, that's a story. If you feel like part of the element of the story is doing that, well, then you may need to adjust the story, as we kind of talked about in the improv episode, of kind of changing the book a little bit to fit you and your group. So hopefully we kind of talked about the burnout quite a bit. We've talked a bit about what you can do, how you can solve it, and other aspects that can or cannot be related to why people might get burnt out. The last thing I'd like to discuss is the Dungeon Master themselves burning out. I'm assuming if you are a Dungeon Master watching these videos, you probably are pretty invested and you're probably passionate about what you do. I know I am. But sometimes you may feel burnt out yourself. I would feel like at that point, it'd probably be best to take a session off, a week off or whatever, rest yourself, read books, watch playthrough, gonna re-spark that passion maybe. Or again, let's talk to your players. Communication is key. Communication is the key to everything, and having that open lines between the players and the DM and vice versa will make everybody have a more enjoyable game. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Be sure to like and comment down below, and make sure to stay tuned for episode 7, the final episode of my Running an Adventure Path series. And this one will be focused on the big bad evil guy, the BBEG, your final ultimate villain for your campaign, and what you should do with them. Thank you guys for watching.